All right. I think we are all in line for the first AI Jason podcast. I'm joined by Ryan Van Sickle, and I am Taylor Jackson, and we're going to be recording these episodes periodically every now and then. The intention of creating kind of a unique perspective variety show of what's happening in AI and how AI is affecting culture and people and work across the face of the planet right now, as we've never seen. Ryan, would you take a second and introduce yourself and like how you're connected to AI, working with AI, and background?
Sure, yeah. So I currently am the co-founder of a AI studio consultancy called Compression that Taylor works with me on, and yeah, we're involved in, you say broadly, AI transformation projects, helping companies adopt AI and gain legibility into how to structure their companies so that they can make the most use out of AI tools. And then I'm also the head of strategy of a boutique cryptographic research firm based out of Spain called Inverse that's more focused on agentic security and governance and that kind of thing. But I've been thinking about AI for a long time. I did my thesis in undergrad and graduated in 2007 on singularity. So I got into Ray Kurzweil's work early on. For those who don't familiar with that particular train of thought, is just the idea that technology is growing at an exponential rate, and eventually it will sort of get to a point where it's beyond what any single person can really make sense of. It just sort of reaches a kind of vertical asymptote, and he correctly, I think in the early 2000s, predicted that AGI, or artificial general intelligence, would come about around 2029, and a lot of people think that's still true. So anyway, I've been thinking about AI and AGI and all this kind of stuff for about 20 years, and yeah, I'm both deeply interested in the kind of technical stuff, but also just on its impact in daily life. I have a lot of friends who aren't in technology, but who use ChatGPT and these tools and are noticing how it's impacting their lives. And, I use it a lot for work, but also in my personal life, and just have this kind of broad interest in how culture and day-to-day life are adapting. And yeah, just really interested in the lived experience of what AI is doing, beyond the headlines and the like boardroom briefs and all that. So
I think that's a great segue to like the kind of meaning and purpose of the show, which is to understand how these technologies and tools are like impacting and shifting like human behavior, cognitive behavior in our society, in our workflows. I'll back up really quick. Like for myself, I would say that like technology is already at the point where it's like hard to grasp what's happening and how fast things are moving. So I work with the compression team as well. And my background is more in like human dynamics, like organizational anthropology, working with startup teams and uncovering like what people's skill sets are, what they're good at, helping teams to find like product market fit, bring on new team members, training for kind of developer advocacy, things like that. I worked in governance and crypto for the past 8 years or so, and took a year off and sort of like went and lived in the woods. And now coming back from that experience, working with an AI team doing services as software is a steep learning curve, but having people like Ryan and our other co-founder Mikio, who are super generous with their time to create structures and frameworks that help someone like me, who I consider myself more of a layman, to actually understand this technology, these tools, to use them in your everyday life and in your decision making to help you be like more effective, more powerful, to understand situations and structure at a higher octave has been like fun, interesting, challenging, like all of the things. And we're thinking at a very high level for like, how do we integrate this into businesses? How do we transform businesses and companies? But the really interesting conversation is like, how is this impacting society? And I think that that's what we want to set the stage for here. So what I will do, Ryan, is like when we talked about starting the show, you said, I have a buddy in mind, and my buddy is using AI, but like not in like any professional business capacity. He's just using it, tinkering around with it. So what I'd like to hear is like, give your buddy a pseudonym, right? And tell us about him. What is he working on? What is his business? How is he using AI today? And how are you seeing that? How are you seeing him engage with it? Like paint the picture for us so that users can understand like and relate to like, oh, that might be my experience as well. You're still muted.
So yeah, uh, my friend, let's call him Pete, uh, who lives here in Richmond, Virginia, where I do, about 2 hours south of DC. And super smart guy, uh, but not in technology in any way. He's a dating coach, really great, um, fairly high impact dating coach. And he has used, I think, ChatGPT primarily since it came out. And he started using it just kind of as an alternative to Google for basic search requests. And then I think he quickly figured out that it has some amount of emotional intelligence, and then just started using it for literally everything. And I've noticed him both in using it for his business on like writing copy for websites or creating business plans for, or structuring a new offer or an outline for a YouTube channel he wants to create, but also just how he uses it in his personal life of like going on walks and talking to it and using it for kind of this interactive journaling or self-reflection. He really has created a deeper relationship with it, which I think is really interesting. And it has very much become this kind of like advisor to him and his defining his goals or making sense of difficult issues that he's coming encounter with in his day-to-day life. But it's interesting, to see somebody who uses it a ton, but is definitely not plugged into Twitter or, the AI blogosphere or YouTube. He's not like listening on the latest headlines. He doesn't know the newest tools that are coming out. He definitely he's not running OpenClaw or one of these kinds of agentic tools locally. He's not experimenting with weird models. I don't think he's even tried Claude. He's certainly not vibe coding, but he's a really smart guy and he uses AI a lot, and he totally gets how important it is for his future in business, but also in life. So when thinking about this show, I think about him and I'm like, okay, what? Because we hang out and I'll just tell him about stuff very casually because I'm super plugged in, and he's like, oh, I had no idea. That's so cool. I'm gonna go check that out. Like the other day he came over, I was helping him with a new website, and I was like, yeah, the ChatGPT's image capability just relaunched. They launched their second image model called Image 2, and it's way better than anything else by a long shot that's come out. You can actually use it to make photos that more or less look real, and you can use it for making a logo. We like in real time like made a dozen different logo concepts, and he was like, wow, this has gotten really good. I had no idea. And I used ChatGPT, and I was like, awesome. I'm glad that I could share that with you. So I think my orientation is like a show for people like Pete, people who are not, they're not stragglers per se. They're not like avoiding AI or have never heard of it or confused about it, but they're also not, living in San Francisco, working for a tech company, vibe coding the latest thing, playing with OpenClaw, and doing the latest hyper technical stuff. They're like somewhere in the middle where they're plugged in and interested and engaged and want to use the tools. They just are not up on the latest things. They don't know what's out there. They're not, even if they did, they wouldn't know which ones to choose or why. So creating something that sort of curates the stuff that's actually relevant, and also helping people make sense of the cultural impact, these things, the narratives around job loss and the changing of media and fake news and all this kind of stuff that gets frankly glossed over by most of the AI podcast and YouTube channels. So
I think that's a great framing. It actually gives me a bunch of like tangential questions about like like AI usage inside of dating, like in your dating profile, like therapeutic methodologies. Like yeah, I had some experience with a rough breakup last year, and I actually used AI as like a kind of tool where I'm like, I'm feeling like this, but like what should I say to this person, to be like more like grounded. And it was interesting the things it came up with because we used a model that was trained on trans-Himalayan like philosophy, like Buddhism, Tibetan structure, and it was like always taking me back to like focusing on myself and focusing on like like neutrality instead of charge, which was an interesting like reflection. It was like having a digital therapist to run all my answers through, and I found it useful for sure as a contextual device. So my ideal like person for the show is someone a little bit different. We'll call him Jason for the purposes of this example. He's using AI to find a job right now. He's been freelancing. He lives near me and he lives out here on the East Coast in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And he has to work remote because he's like a graphic designer, artist, creative guy who's done fashion design and merchandise and all kinds of things over the years and built creative campaigns. And he basically will not find a killer job in his area in Tulsa where he can be super creative and work with a crack team. So he's looking to find a remote job where he can be a creative director or work with a team that's doing brand and design and creative concepts like advertising, marketing kind of stuff. And so he's been using Claude to help him find a new job because, you know, being an independent creative is like tough and challenging. And I think especially if you're like, you've spent time trying to build a brand for yourself and you're like, well, I didn't sell enough or I didn't scale enough, like whatever it is, you get to the point where you're like, I need some stability, I need some foundation. So that's what he's been using it for. And I've been talking to him and feeding him like tips and ideas of how to present himself as an AI augmented creative director, where it's like, you know how to use AI in, some form or function. Use the AI to help you get ahead of the job market. So when you're applying, you're like, I will not be replaced by AI because I know how to use the AI in a way to make me more powerful. So, but still like a beginner middle user, right? Like, and the other thing I wanted to eliminate too is like, I want to eliminate all jargon wherever possible. So words that we know that people might not know, such as OpenClaw, which basically means running your own customizable AI agent, like locally on your computer. And then the other one is like vibe coding, which essentially means like talking into your phone, and then the AI builds an app or a web page or whatever it is. That's a very popular thing that is common now that people are using. So I'm thinking of Jason, I'm thinking of him like looking for work and trying to augment his creative skills with an agent that can go out and do stuff for him, put together proposals for him and send them, like work with clients to be like, here's generally what we're thinking, and then do the directorial work, right? As a creative director would do, maybe not the creative work, but helping to guide and provide structure for the things that he wants to do. So I think of him and I hold him in my mind when we're talking about these things where it's like, what can I share that he might really like or enjoy in this show? What tidbits can he take away and be like, oh, that's actually really useful, or like I want to go research that kind of thing. So
I got one right off the bat. So I think this literally was announced today or yesterday. So Adobe, which any creative uses broadly, Illustrator, Photoshop, Lightroom, they have a partnership with Claude, one of the big AI model companies, to connect directly to the full Adobe suite. I think even some of the 3D applications directly inside of Claude. So now you can upload an image to Claude and have it connect to Adobe's applications to do image edits or illustrations or whatever, so it's a programmatic interface. You can use natural language to just describe what you want, but make use of the like bevy of sophisticated tools that Adobe has. I think it's going to be a game changer for people doing, specifically graphic design and things, manipulating images and content. I think even video stuff. And it's pretty cool.
Can you reduce this down for me? Like if I'm a creative designer or a graphic designer, like what does this enable? Like what can I now do? I'm sitting in front of my computer. I've enabled this Adobe tool. Like walk me through that just briefly.
Yeah, so say you have this whole workflow. Say you're a photographer and you have this whole workflow where you'll take a bunch of images and then you'll upload them to Lightroom and you've got all these presets and you have to manually go through and adjust the saturation or the brightness or whatever on each of your images and then pump it out. And then you'll take it into Photoshop for more advanced filters or edits that aren't possible in Lightroom. And there's this whole workflow, this series of actions that you as a user have to manually use an interface to do. Now with this connection, and it remains to be seen how robust it actually is, but in theory at least, you can instead upload your set of images into Claude directly, or just put them in a folder on your computer and connect the folder, and then just tell Claude broadly what it is you want to do. You can use an image that was edited in this particular way as a reference, and you're like, make the rest of them look like this, or you can describe in detail the process that you go through, and then it will just go through them, and automatically it will just run that workflow over and over again. So
So this is going to save creatives a lot of time, first of all.
exactly,
And then
yeah.
second of all, it's actually going to lower the bar for people using Adobe tools, where it's like, if you're like brighten everything up here and like, remove like, fade out the background, focus on the profile of the person in the image, like you go from having to understand all of the little buttons and togs and toggles, because actually I've tried to use Adobe before and I'm like, this is kind of complicated. Like all
For
these buttons, I
sure.
don't know what all these little icons mean. Now I can just say it and the AI will like do the things the icons need to do with natural language.
Exactly. So that, I mean, those are two, that's a good way to put it. Those are the two, I think, broad themes for like AI in an accessible way. It's either speeding up a workflow that you already do, so it's automating or reducing the time that it takes, or it's enabling somebody who, because they don't understand how to use these tools, whether it's like editing an image in Photoshop or creating a really snazzy dynamic website because you don't know HTML or JavaScript, you can now do, someone like that can now do those things just by using natural language and asking for what they want and then editing it by just describing what they like or don't like. It's radically democratizes a new, this kind of creative level production for the average person. And then, I think for the person who is a skilled creator, it just takes what they're capable of up 10x, and that's, someone who's spent, the last 15 years or so in creative services. And, I got my start helping run it's kind of boutique branding and design and strategy studio. Like the things that would literally take a team of 10 people months to do, I can do as an individual in minutes, literally, and it's just mind blowing. It would have cost hundreds of thousands of dollars for a person or a brand or company to do things that now take minutes. And so that as this foundation, it's like, okay, I can just do that without thinking what's possible. What can I do now that was never possible before because of these tools? And that's what I call the AI native creative is up to. They're like looking for things that were previously impossible to do as ways to differentiate themselves or create in novel and new ways. And there's a lot of different cool things that are out there for that.
I love this tag phrase, the AI native creative. This is great. The while you were talking about this, actually I got a light bulb clicked on where it's like, I would like to deploy AI into my Hinge profile so that the AI can find people that match with my vibe and my style or the things I like and just bring me those matches. Like I don't want to swipe anymore. I want AI to do
Correct.
the work.
To do
What
that for you.
when is the first AI empowered dating service where it's like on all of the things, all of the answers, questions you answered, like you matched with this person effectively, right? Like that will be fascinating to see. We could talk to Pete about that and see what he thinks.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, so I haven't done extensive research. I'm sure there's a lot of companies working on this, but I know obviously like using AI in your profiles has become gone from like I remember when AI image editors like just barely got good enough for to make images that looked like you and like a handful of people were doing it, but nobody knew what was going on. They still looked a little fake, so people were kind of confused. But now they've gotten so good, and they've been that way for a while. It's like I don't have the exact data, but it's like a significant percentage of people are using AI to edit their photos for their dating profile. So that, to me, that's gone from virtually nobody to a meaningful percentage of people and is only going to increase. What you're talking about, which is like take an existing dating platform and then give it access to an LLM, sort of like we described with Adobe. I'm sure somebody's figured out how to do that. I doubt they natively allow integrations. They probably, for many reasons, don't want you to do that, but I'm sure people have figured that out. That would be an interesting thing to explore. And yeah, in terms of like AI native dating, that to me is the next wave. I'm sure Tinder and Hinge and the big platforms are working on this, trying to figure stuff out. The most immediately obvious thing to me is just preventing using AI to prevent fake profiles. Like that's such a big issue for so many people.
When
It's
you
like
say fake profiles, do you mean like profiles that just are there for engagement or like modified profiles based on real people?
profiles that aren't, yeah, that are just made up people. I mean, AI is on both sides of this. AI has enabled anybody to create a fake person and put those images on.
Sure. Videos,
Yeah,
so you can do audio stuff where it's like, hey, I'm this like really cute 25-year-old chick who's like really interested in you. And I'm like, no, you're not. Like, this
yeah,
doesn't happen.
yeah. And so, whatever. They have verification processes and things, but they're not the best. So AI on the other side can actually help prevent that. And I know that's a big area of research. But then what you're talking about is like, okay, how do you actually use the full power of these things to enable
Like
better
more
matches?
connections, right? More matches. Like I want to
Well,
be on all
more,
the apps. Like put
yeah,
me on Tinder, Hinge, Field,
sure,
whatever. But I don't have the time to do all that. I don't want to be spend hours like scouring through individuals to be yes or no. I want the tool to bring me a report, right? It's like, here's the top
totally.
10 people that we found who are like on the apps right now. And we did an opening message for you just to see if they're like in. And it's like,
Yeah.
great, thank you. I'll go and check that. It's like my assistant did the work to bring me qualified matches and then I will follow up, right?
Yeah. I mean, I guess it's
I think
like
people
what
would pay for that too. Can you imagine like where it's like a
for
dating
sure.
coach, right? Where it's like we brought you the people that are most it's like I think there's like a service it's like Silver Fox or something. You know, when I used to live in Jackson Hole, it was like very wealthy men would like have a bevy of women who are available, sort of like delivered to like a profile where it's like, would you
Yeah,
like
yeah,
this person? Would you like to meet this person? And I'm like, that's kind of like, it feels a little bit weird, but like in an AI format, it actually doesn't feel that weird because it's like, cool.
oh,
It's just
yeah,
doing the work of like compiling my preferences and then bringing me people who are available.
for sure. I mean, what you're describing, I think, is just like a matchmaking service where you pay like a. I mean, I guess there's different models, but for sure that I think to some degree or other, these platforms try to do that themselves. They just don't do it really well yet.
They don't. And
They
the
don't.
data, the information of who's available is so siloed as well, right? Like you can't get all the available people from all the apps into like some sort of like database where it's like I can
No.
query that. Like, but how
Yeah.
useful would that be? Universal single database. It's like these are all the women in your area that are single and they're on all the apps. And I'm like, fascinating. This is useful information. Like more data, please.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it remains to be seen like how this happened. Like clearly AI can help with matchmaking. There are counter incentives though that these platforms have to do that because if they get better at matching people, that means they will spend money for less time. So they actually make less money the more effective they are. And less,
Is this like naturally the case though? Like if they're better at matching, you're off the app and then you're just like married and happy and you never use it again. So really this like antithetical for them to actually solve the problem that they are proposing to solve.
yeah, it's sort of like healthcare, at least here in America. It's like, yeah, when you're paying for a service that stops, the payment stops when you get the outcome, then you're counter incentivized to actually deliver the outcome, either in health or in dating, unless you change the model where it's you have outcome based price, where it's like you're actually paying, only paying when you get a date or when you get
I kind of love
a
that.
relationship. But
Like
those things are really hard to met, it's because it happens outside of the
right.
app. It's like figuring out a way to actually track that and categorize it. And even, just purely on the like AI training side is there's so much information that's relevant to producing a like competent match, which is like, okay, you match with somebody, you go out on a date. One, the app currently doesn't know that, and then two, it doesn't know your experience after that. It doesn't have access to that data at scale, and so it's really hard. And then it doesn't know when you met somebody that you actually stay in a relationship with for how long. But it
This
would
is
need
where
that
I
information.
this is where I think things get really interesting, right? Where it's like an AI enabled dating app is like checks in with you after your date. It's like, how did it go? Like, send me a voice message, right? And you're like, hey, Claudette, like, actually, it was really interesting. She was really like thoughtful, and I liked the things she was talking about. Like, I don't know if it's like totally a match for me. Might be more of like a friends thing. Got to go out and try to check it again. But it's like that data is so useful to the agent that's trying to bring you possible matches that there's a feedback loop. It's like if you follow up with us, we're going to get better at matching you. So it's like baked into the culture of like do the follow up, do the post mortem of every date, so you can actually train the agent to get better at bringing you matches. Like,
I mean, it sounds like you're thinking of this as like a service that like latches on to existing dating platforms. It's like we're dating platform agnostic. You work with the agent goes and connects with Hinge and Tinder and OkCupid and whatever, and then does all of the work of communicating and saying something clever and scheduling the date, and then it just like puts it on your calendar and you go out and then you tell your agent how it went, and then the agent uses that as feedback to go, and it's like that sounds super cool. I hope that exists. I'm not sure how that would
yes.
work, but
Who's building this right now? Like, please send us an email, t@compression.xyz. I want to talk to you. I want to see, like, hear your perspective. Because this is, I think, for like busy professionals who are like, sure, I'll use the apps to meet people. I think this would be a service that people would pay for. Like, it's something that I would for sure pay for. Like, it's interesting, right? Because it's like being single, being in the dating world. You're like, you don't want to spend a bunch of your time on apps. Like, no one really wants to do that, right? The apps are hell. And then it's like, if you're meeting people in person, like, yes, of course, it's like good to go and talk to people and be human kind of thing. But like, you never know where people are at. So it's like meeting people at the gym, for example. It's like, hey, what's up? How are you doing? Like, why are you talking to me? I'm in the middle of my set kind of thing. Like,
yeah,
okay, cool.
yeah.
You probably have a boyfriend. Like, no worries. You can see, everyone can probably see that like dating is a very important topic that's on my mind right now.
Yeah, I
But I
think.
do think it's interesting, like, how do these tools like change and impact our ways of going about meeting people? Dating, like online dating profiles, definitely changed the game for meeting people. And I think they kind of made it harder to meet people in person because everyone's like
Yeah,
online all
why?
the time. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, well, if you don't have a profile, you don't exist. I don't know if it was you and me or someone else who was talking about this, but oh, it was my friend Sebastian. He was like, sometimes I meet people and they're like, "What's your Instagram profile?" And he's like, "And if I don't have a lot of followers, or if I, or I'm like not on Instagram right now, it's almost like, oh, was it you? Was it you and me that were
Yeah, yeah,
talking
we
about
were
that?
talking about,
Yeah."
yeah,
And it's like, I don't have an Instagram. People are like, "That's weird," and you're
yeah.
like, okay, like that's a good filter for me. But I think it's interesting to be like, I don't waste my time on social media. Like I like to be in person, meeting people, and people are like, I don't know about that. Like that doesn't check out. Like that doesn't vouch. It's like clearly a values difference. But these things, these tools like social verifiability or like social credentials, where it's like,
Yeah,
do
yeah.
people follow you? Does anyone I know follow you? Like I had an experience where I was getting to know someone here locally, and she was like, she asked for my profile, right? And I was like, I have an Instagram, but I don't follow anyone. I don't really do anything. And she was like, that's cool. Like, I maybe like I'll share mine with you or whatever. And she was kind of like, I like that you don't follow anyone. Like it's it's good that you're like not like on the profile all the time. I was like, great. And then she found one person I followed who was like into more risque, like BDSM, kink stuff. And she was like, why do you follow this person? Like, I'm very curious. This was after a couple weeks of talking. And I was like, I think she's really interesting. She has like long form blog posts about like the kink world that I'm like pretty fascinated by. And she was like, yeah, that's not really for me. And I was like, so like
Mm,
just done. We don't talk anymore.
hands down, because you
Like
follow
hands
one
down. It's like
person.
you follow one person who's a little bit like risque, and I was like, okay, that's clearly a good filtration mechanism. But it's like who you follow, like what you put online, what you subscribe to online, like can say something about you as a person. It doesn't necessarily need to, because I actually don't believe that like whoever you follow defines your preferences in life. But
Sure.
it's like I would rather just meet someone and be like, "That's interesting. That's an interest of yours. Cool. Tell me about it," kind of thing. But you have to be careful with what you put out there anymore, especially
Yeah.
on a site like Instagram. If you're like following all the booty, the thought pics kind of thing, it's like, well, that's where your attention and your focus is, right? And all that stuff's public.
Well, just to like take this another level, it's like that's how it works today, but how it's going to work is like, Kristen or whoever you're just met is going to ask her AI personal assistant to do that for her. She's like, go figure out everything you know about this guy, Taylor Jackson, and the AI will make an assessment based on her stated preferences about whether she should waste her time with you. And that to me is like that's really the leap that we're in right now, where people are slowly starting to delegate responsibility for certain areas of their lives, increasingly so. And like back to my friend Pete, it's like, you know, he doesn't always listen to what ChatGPT's advice says, but he increasingly asks ChatGPT for advice on the big decisions that he's making. And I think more and more people will do that. And over time, especially as they get smarter, more and more people will just defer. They will just be like, it's easier to just let you decide what I should do than me deciding myself. And not to say one way is right or wrong, but just noticing that will very likely be the case for a lot of people. And what does that do to society? Like, what does society look like in that world?
I mean, the real question is like, we're already living in a society that is very like cheap oriented. Like we just follow things, right? Like even from the concept of like working your whole life until retirement, going to college, like people have just subscribed to that. How do people maintain their agency and autonomy in a world where AI answers all the questions for you and does your work for the most part?
I mean, like, that is a great question. I mean, it's as someone who uses these things all the time and generally a huge advocate for them, like it's increasingly hard, like if you use them a lot for many different things, to even just keep up with the stream of information that they're producing. Like you're increasingly relying on them to summarize and sense make because there's just so much information that even they themselves are creating. So it's like, in some way or another, if you're using these tools as a way to scan or sift through the noise of the media sphere or news or information, like you are delegating some level of responsibility to them. But we've been doing that for a long time. It's like thinking even back as far as the printing press, it's like before the printing press, it's like people didn't read books because books had to be manually created, mostly by monks and monasteries, and you would be lucky to ever come into contact with one. And even if you did, you couldn't read, so it didn't matter. And then eventually the printing press came along, and all of a sudden you had print propaganda. Like people were using printing press not just for works of literature or the great pieces from Alexandria or whatever philosophy. They were using it to create propaganda pamphlets, and they were like spreading them around. A lot of it was totally made up, and it was, became a tool just like social media today to spread disinformation. And so, it's not a new problem we've been encountering. It's just become more complex and more sophisticated. So I don't know, like the good answer to that is other than just like critical, like genuinely critical thinking, the ability to encounter information and think about it using your own internal rubric of logic and understanding to like form a picture of the world that you're using. When you get information, you're thinking about it and not just acting. In terms of like agentic AI, where you're literally giving agents, you're delegating agents accountability either in an organization or personally to do stuff without your input, that you have to design in, just like a CEO would, you have to design in ways to audit what it's doing periodically and sense make if it's actually doing what you want. Like whatever that feedback loop, I think that's actually a good metaphor is like because of like AI and agents in the future, whether you think of yourself like this today or not, everybody will become like a CEO. Everyone will be the CEO of their own little fleet of agents, and they will have to cognitively do the same thing that a CEO does today, which is they have to take in the inputs of a lot of different individuals and synthesize it and make sense of it, delegate parts of it, and reserve parts of it that they continue to control, and to continuously audit and refine those loops of learning and information. And yeah, cognitively, it's hard. Like not everyone, I think, today could do that, but I think that's the growing expectation of for the average employee who's using these tools is that you have to develop this kind of managerial, executive level awareness in order to make use of these things without just literally delegating it once and just having no input.
Let's take it back down to the level of the user, right? Like the person, the Pete and the Jason, because it's like these folks are using it like conversationally, it's like with advice and stuff like this. Like, how does that process of like becoming an executive, becoming managerial, like how does that relate to these folks? Do you think that they're actually like they're going to have to do that for their own process of like thinking through problems, thinking through solutions? Because it's like, will Pete ever like use AI to like run his business, or it's like, will he
I
get
think
there one day? Like what?
100%. I think so. It's like right now, part of the problem is that like using AI as a chat tool is very accessible. It's like that's what's consumer facing. Using AI as like an agent or like something that can take action on your behalf, for the most part, they're either, if they're usable and simple, they're like packaged in these really expensive enterprise oriented services. So someone like Pete is probably not going to have access to these things. Or if they're open source or affordable, they are really convoluted and hard to set up. You have to be somewhat technical in order to implement these things. But I think that's going to change. I think even over the next 12 months, there will be a lot more consumer facing agent based tools that someone like Pete will have access to that are really low cost. So that's one, is just accessibility. The second is like, yeah, in order to make use of those things, to get outputs that are high quality, one will be forced in order to engage in this kind of cognitive process, because it's like, okay, I get an agent and I'm like, cool, start doing stuff for me. And it's like, okay, it'll ask you a bunch of questions about you, and then it will go and start doing stuff, and you're like, this is not very good. And it's like, okay, well, tell me why it isn't good. And it's like,
Mhm.
even just in that, and the agent is sort of, it's in a way, I think good agents will will be like your friend who's in the back seat who's like navigating for you. It's sort of backseat driving. It's like teaching you how to manage it better.
Sure.
But at the end of the day, I think the result will be the same, where people will be forced to engender this kind of managerial thinking, which is like, if I want these agents to be actually in charge of my social media or my YouTube channel or of writing articles for me or updating my website, I need to define what success looks like. I need to create guidelines about who I am, what my brand is, what it is not. I need to create aesthetic design oriented guidelines about what's my look and what's not, what the things that I like, the things that I don't like, the things that I say and don't say. So as soon as you start creating things like this, you've entered managerial territory. You're now creating your organizational canon, the set of documents that define what an organization is and how it works and what is good and what is bad and the processes by which you update or review these things. And again, I think as agents get smarter, they'll know that you want to create those things, and they'll just do them kind of intuitively based on interacting with you. You'll just give it feedback and it will just kind of learn and start creating these things. But I think the people who will be most effective at using them, as in today's business world, will be people who are most effective at defining these criterion of success. They can tell very explicitly what is good and what is bad and what to do and why. And it's the same kind of thinking that lets somebody manage a team of 20 people really effectively. Is like, you've got to define what the work is, what the outcomes are, and you have to define how those 20 people will collaborate and work together under what conditions and rules and all of this kinds of stuff. Yeah.
It,
So anyway, I don't think the average person is going to get there tomorrow, but I do think the technology will push people increasingly outside of this individual contributor state of mind and into a more managerial orientation. And the people that succeed the most will be the people who are cognitively able to get into this executive level capacity where they're like, I'm managing agents who are managing other agents who are managing other agents. It's
mm.
like, that's the people running one person billion-dollar companies, which is this sort of meme on Twitter. No, yeah, doesn't really exist today, but will for sure.
Makes me think that AI will push us to become the boss of our own lives, right? Like looking at all of our life, what I'm doing, like from my health to my diet to my relationship to the like self-talk that I have, like AI can almost become this like life coach, integrated life coach structure thing to be like, are you living the optimal life? Are you living the life that you want to live? Or can we change some things around? Should you go to the gym more, right? Should you like stop dating people who have like avoidant tendencies? Like it's just like the more information we give it, right? The more it can actually optimize for like creating structures and systems that we can follow. Because I know humans like to be told what to do. We just kind
For
of
sure.
do, right? Ryan,
Yeah,
tell me what to do, dude. Like that would be nice. Like pay me and
yeah,
tell me what to do. Like,
totally. Give me money and tell me what I should do. Yeah, I agree. I mean, if someone, I think the average person, if they are getting guidance or advice that's actually high quality, that's taking their best interest into mind, people actually want it. It's like generally when you're getting advice that's either not good or you can tell on some level is the person giving it is doing it for their own benefit and not yours, and that's where we're like, yeah, that's something feels off about this, or
Mhm.
they give it to you in a way that just makes you feel like an idiot or something. But broadly, if all of those criteria are met, yeah, I think people will want that, and I think agents will increasingly be able to do that. The real question for me is like, what are the consequences of that at scale? It's like, what does the world become when to get any job, you have to be an agent manager. It's like right now, you have a large part of the workforce that's never managed anybody. They have only managed themselves, and some of them aren't even doing a very good job of that, you know?
That's true. That's
Yeah,
reality. Been
that's just
there.
the truth. It's like, yeah, not to, be mean, but that's where we are today. But I think you can start seeing it already in the kind of messaging from these different companies talking about their internal AI transformation processes. Like increasingly, companies are using AI adoption as a tool for performance management. So when they do performance reviews, they're specifically tracking and measuring people's AI development, their ability to navigate and use these tools effectively. And I think the even more pressing one for your friend is like, it sounds like he's getting on top of this, is like AI capacity is increasingly becoming one of the primary things recruiters are looking for when they hire somebody new. That's today, it's 20 early 2026. It's like in whatever, even 2 years, what percentage of companies in this country and elsewhere will be looking for AI capabilities when they hire somebody? Are you not going to be able to get a job if you don't know AI? And I mean, my answer is like, for better or for worse, and we have no idea what this is going to do to society. I think that's true. I don't think broadly companies will be letting go of as many people as the news would suggest,
Mm.
but I do I do think there will be massive turnover in the people that are working at those companies, meaning like there will be increasingly less people, the people in companies, large companies especially, who don't adopt AI will increasingly be pushed out,
Mm.
and the new people that are hired to replace them or to grow headcount will all be people who have a fair amount of AI capability.
Mm.
So it is what it is. It's like we can try to fight that if you for whatever reason don't like this trend, but it's to me it's kind of already in process. So for me, I'm like, yes, I want this show to really help people understand that reality, come to grips with it, and then figure out in a simple way that works for them how to actually integrate these tools in their life without getting lost in the details of the technical complexity and really seeing the real value and why they can be deeply empowering for people, as they have been for me, and I think for you as well.
Yeah, I think the reality of the situation is like we are like we are at a tipping point of a new technology, right? Like very much like the internet in the 90s. It was like if you're working at a company in the 90s and you're like not really interested in the internet, not really down with being online kind of thing, you're like, hey, we do things by the mail, we use the fax machine, whatever. It's like in 10 years, you're getting pushed to the point of like, we run our business online. Like the world operates online. That's what it is. You are getting pushed towards using these tools, understanding these tools, and people who are kind of like resistant to this AI like trend, which is probably here, most likely here to stay, is like resisting the internet, right? Like just like putting your head in the sand and being like, it's not for better or worse. It's just like, this is where things are going. And so it's like, it behooves us as people who want to stay productive and be functional in the world and not be replaced, right, by a bunch of tools to get ahead of it. Because if you are not someone who manages these tools and understands these tools, you become less productive inside of a system that runs on these things.
100%.
Yeah.
It's, yeah, I think that's really well articulated. So I'm looking at the time have moved along here. There are like a number of, I don't know, a few other just headlines, news that I wanted to just rattle off real quick that are,
Let's drop them. Yeah, I want to see
yeah,
them.
yeah. So one is that's more of just, I mean, I think it actually is really important, the outcome of this, but it is also just really entertaining and interesting. So this week, going to trial is Elon Musk and Sam Altman. So Elon Musk, I'm sure most people know, who has his own AI platform, XAI, that's will be merging with his company SpaceX fairly soon. So it's becoming a major competitor to ChatGPT and OpenAI. And then you have Sam Altman, who's the founder and CEO of ChatGPT. They are Elon Musk is suing Sam Altman for I think 120 billion dollars or something, but she has stated that he will not himself be the personal recipient of, but is accusing OpenAI and Sam specifically, and I think the president as well, of various different kinds of fraud for changing what was originally a nonprofit into a for-profit. So Elon, back in the day, he invested, I think, close to $40 million into what was then a complete, fully nonprofit entity, and then under the auspices that it was for the common good and whatever. And then obviously over time that has changed. Microsoft invested, and then in order to continue raising money, have increasingly moved towards this for-profit model. So anyway, there's an interesting sort of conversation on both sides. It's whether you agree with or like either of them. At this point, they seem both pretty disliked broadly in society and culture. But I think the reason I'm bringing up is the outcome of it is actually will be really interesting. Like, if it seems unlikely they will actually like destructure OpenAI. It seems that will continue on. They will, if they do get fined or whatever. But I think the more meaningful precedent is if the lawsuit is not successful, that it would basically set a precedent that nonprofits can become for profit, that you can go out and start a charity and raise money, philanthropic money, that has no equity tied with it. And then some point down the road, you can transition that nonprofit into a for profit without owing any of your original donors any money. And it's like, that will be an interesting
Wow,
precedent with that.
that's
And
wild.
yeah, yeah. So that's sort of I think what Elon is arguing against. It's a fair point, but it's also, he's a really disliked person who his role in this was not totally clean. He had at one point attempted to essentially take the thing private himself, but was unable to because they didn't so it's complicated, and not it's going to go in front of a jury and they're going to make a selection, but it will just be sort of guidance for a judge who ultimately has to come to a decision. But the ramifications of it, I do think, are going to be pretty far ranging. So anyway, that's an interesting piece of news.
Yeah. We'll keep people abreast of that. We follow the trial links. What else do you have for us?
Taylor Swift has filed to
Swifty.
Swiftie has filed to trademark her voice.
What does that mean?
It means she wants her voice trademarked so that if anyone tries to clone or replicate it using AI and use it for anything, that
They
she
owe
wants
her
to be
money.
paid. They owe her money.
She
So
needs more money at this point.
well, is it, clearly not, but if you track a lot of the other things you do, it's like, she's just more than anything a very shrewd business person, and sees the trend, sees where this is going, and clearly knows that her intellectual property is super valuable and that people are going to do this and they're going to use it to make money. And she believes.
But does she does what it actually become just a bunch of court cases of her trying to enforce her trademark of her voice? Is that what it
Well, I
and
mean, that's what she has, whatever, a whole army of lawyers for. But yeah, I mean, that's part
they're
of.
like, we'll go after the biggest people who are making the most money and blah 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 blah
Well,
blah.
yeah, and I think it will change law. It's like because you have also all these platforms that enable people to clone voices or to create audio or whatever. So those will be the biggest actors in this that will be required to do certain things.
Does this set a precedent though, where it's like where one person's voice is trademarked, now everyone's voice can be trademarked?
Well, exactly. So I don't know where this is in the process, but for sure, I think that's the bigger news. It's like we're moving into a world in which celebrities or people of influence are now, there's an incentive and likely will be a movement of people trademarking their likeness and their voice because of the rise of these generative AI tools. So obviously she's a really big name and has a huge presence, so she's getting ahead of this. But I think, in a few years, we're going to see a lot of people follow suit. And yeah, I mean, it's both interesting on like, yeah, protections of creatives, but also it's like, okay, people are gonna license it, and then what are they gonna do with it? And what is the world in which you have people legally capable of producing music as Taylor Swift that sounds exactly like Taylor Swift and maybe better than Taylor Swift? That to me is the more interesting.
It's like there may not need to be any more Taylor Swift created content because creatives have taken her likeness and her image and made things so interesting and creative with it that she makes money from. It's like there is no separation from what was created by her and what was created by the community because it's like it's all just flowing together now, right? It's like water from a bucket poured into a river. You're like, where's the water in the bucket inside the river? It's all one. It's all
Oh yeah, what so it's
merge.
I think starting with her, but then, very quickly, I think we'll move to actors as well because their AI video is getting so good, particularly with the latest models. See Dance 2.0 is the one everyone's talking about right now. If you haven't seen clips from these, go on Twitter, go on Instagram and check them out. They're extraordinary.
I
Um,
feel like now is the time to drop the clip of me in the House of Sound that you sent last week. So maybe if we can add it into the show notes.
yeah, yeah. Totally. Yeah, I just made a clip literally just using the profile image on Telegram of his and dropped that into Higgsfield, which is sort of a AI video and image model aggregator, which is super easy to use. I highly recommend it. We're not sponsored by them.
But we'd like to be.
Yeah, Higgsfield, if you want to sponsor this podcast, let us know. But yeah, I'll show that. I'll throw that in the comments. And but yeah, anyway, so that's interesting. What else do we have? Stripe, which is one of the big uh, kind of Web 2 era financial tech companies that, you know, is does payments online. If you're using Shopify or, a lot of different e-commerce platforms or most software tools now use connect to Stripe for the checkout. They've created their own wallet called Link specifically to be used by AI agents. So a big problem that has existed for people who are doing the kind of complicated development work to set up their own local agent systems or whatever is that they want them to go and be able to shop on Amazon or buy something on a Shopify store or whatever, run their business actually, like pay for ads or but in order to do that, they have to give them their credit card deal, and people clearly don't want to do that because these things are still highly unpredictable. So Stripe came in and was like, "This is a big need. We're going to solve this." They created a really elegant solution. I haven't learned that much about it. I actually just saw it, sort of the announcement this morning. So, but anyway, that's I think a very going to be a very interesting thing to watch, especially for
So your AI can now spend your money, but with some guardrails, basically.
yeah, so it's an AI, it's an agent native tool that makes it really easy for the agents to use, but then still makes it really simple to, yeah, set spending limits or to literally approve every purchase before they actually get pushed through. So an agent can initiate a purchase and then it comes to you for approval and then it actually gets pushed to the ultimate service. So anyway, super cool. I think this kind of thing is gonna become very common. I think it's also gonna be this kind of thing in crypto and Web3 is also gonna become. Uh, a lot of people are gonna kind of transition into the space of their products designed not just for humans but for agents. And I think potentially one of the best use cases for Web3, which we can talk about in another episode. I don't think we have time today. Is for agents is like just giving agents the kind of financial infrastructure to communicate not with humans but with other agents to do all kinds of weird and interesting things. So yeah, I think I don't know if there were any other things on your list, but yeah.
Those seem good and clear. We're at an hour now, and I think like this has been great. It's like a great download of the first one. if you had one thing to give people like that they could do or that they could look into this week, like where would you send them?
Yeah, I guess the one thing I didn't mention was so ChatGPT, they came out with their new image model, but they also came out with a new base model, ChatGPT 5.5. And if you're somebody who at some point got on using Claude or Gemini for whatever reason, and you were like, yeah, ChatGPT is kind of fallen behind, I would go back and play with ChatGPT 5.5. It's real smart. It's gotten a lot better. And, this is a slightly more technical implementation, but if you're somebody who's interested in vibe coding or, creating your own apps, but you have no idea, you've never done it before, ChatGPT has a separate app for a desktop called Codex, which is actually really simple to use. And you can use if you have a ChatGPT Pro account, you can still use that to for this purpose, but it sort of gives you access to this more sophisticated environment to do kind of vibe coding, like simple natural language based activities where you can make websites or mobile apps or this kind of thing in a way that's pretty straightforward. And if you don't know how to use it, you just ask it, like, how do I use you? So anyway, that would be one thing I would recommend for people.
Awesome. I'm going to give the polar opposite advice. Close your laptop for a while, get outside in nature, or go to the gym because AI will never replace the effort required to keep you fit and healthy. That is my human tip for the day. Thanks,
Nice.
Ryan. Appreciate it. Let's do another one soon. And yeah, I say we wrap it up from here.
Great. Bye.
Till next time.